Hey Ottawa, this is your Monday Market Snapshot for the Ottawa Real Estate Market for Monday, September 16th, 2024. My name is Annalie Rice. Every week I bring you the details of what's going on in the Ottawa Real Estate Market. So first off, you might notice that there's a little bit of a refresh on the colors and such. I was getting kind of bored of the old look, but this is a good time to ask. If you've been watching my update videos over the last couple of years, I really would love some feedback as to what you feel is missing or what you would like to see, what you like, what you don't like, what you always skip by. I just feel like I need to, update it and make sure that I'm giving people what they would like to see and understand and know about the Ottawa real estate market. So please leave a comment, get in touch, let me know what you'd like to see. So in the meantime, I just refresh some colors and some logos and stuff, and let's see what's happening in the Ottawa real estate market. Okay, so citywide, we see that not only the active listings climbed by quite a bit, almost 100. That was across property types, but most notably in the detached market for the new higher active inventory. And the sales also picked up by 74 this week. That jumped up past where we were 2 weeks ago. That was also across property types pretty evenly, I'd say. The condominiums, usually it does have a bit of a lag, so this makes sense with the long weekend a couple weeks ago, and then the conditional periods that typically happen with condos. Okay, so this is the visual chart for the breakdown of the inventory this week. You can see in the overall inventory, that's the black, and then the active inventory, that's the green, that the last 2 weeks we've seen the increases. Last week we were sort of back up to where we were throughout sort of the month of August leading into the long weekend in September there. But this week, clearly we've broken through that, and so now we're going to have a second peak of inventory this year. So is that going to be above where we were in the earlier peak, or do you think it'll level off? I guess we'll see. It looks like it's climbing pretty high, and I think there's still a lot of listings out there. People see the higher sales, they're going to be like, okay, let's get our house on the market. So down at the bottom, we've got the conditional sales in orange and then the sales in red. And this week, our conditional sales were slightly above what our firm sales were. So expect that the sales will, again, stay pretty strong over the next little while. The horizontal line there at the bottom is showing where the sales level was last year. So you can see that there is quite a few more sales this week than we did the same week last year. Okay, so this chart shows us the new listing breakdown. So we had 568 properties that were listed for sale this past week. 200 of those were relisted properties, and 368 were new to the market listings. So I added in the little horizontal lines on this one. I think it might make it a little too busy, but I did want to point out that the overall listings is way above the peak last year, which this week was the peak last year. And the new inventory, that's the blue line there. Again, we are above, not a huge amount, but we are above where we were for our peak new listings last fall. The sales is quite a significant bit over where we were last year for this time. So I may not keep those horizontal vertical lines to show the year-to-year differences, but I just wanted to point them out this week. Okay, so next up we'll look at the sales. We had 238 sales this past week, and 16% of those properties that sold were with no conditions. So that's a drop back down. We were a little over 20 last week, and 27% of the sales this week were at or above asking price. And that seems to be kind of about the amount that we've been seeing percentage-wise. For the sales within the first 7 days, it was represented 11% of the sales and 25 properties. 52% of those sold with no conditions, and 76% of those sold at or above asking price. Both of those percentages for no conditions and at and above asking price dropped from last week, but again, last week was a bit of a blip week following the long weekend. For sales within the first 30 days, it was 44% of the sales, which was 105 properties, and 18% of those sold with no conditions, 42% at or above asking price. So the properties that were at or above asking price, it was 64 sales this past week that sold at or above asking price. 67% of those, or 43 homes, sold at asking or up to 1% over. 25%, which was 16 homes, sold between 1 and 5% over asking price, and then 5 homes sold for more than 5% above the asking price. So this week we're back to where the highest percentage over and the highest dollar value over is the same property. And in this case, it was a 1970s bungalow out in Orleans, which and it was on a huge lot. I think it was one of those ones where it was the original property and then a subdivision sort of was built around it. So it had a huge property. And it was being listed, although it was a perfectly habitable home, it was being listed and marketed as if it was for redevelopment because a whole lot more homes could have been put on that piece of property. And it was listed at $1 million with offer date and time, and it sold for $1.25 million within days, obviously. Next, we'll zoom into the different areas of the city and see what's happening there. Okay, so for central urban region inside the Greenbelt, we see an increase in properties, active listings on the market across property types, mostly in the detached market, a smaller rise in the condos and in the townhomes. For sales in the last 7 days, it was an increase across property types, most notably in the condos and the detached. Again, the condos, a lot of condos, when they're selling, there's almost always a conditional period. And given the long weekend, it just takes a little while for those sales to filter through with the conditional period. So this totally makes sense on the increase there. In Canada and Stittsville this past week, we have an increase in the number of active listings, mostly in the detached, back up over 200 detached homes in Canada and Stittsville on the market, and almost 120 townhomes. So it's a fair amount of inventory for this time of the year. For the sales, it was slight increases, well, actually a pretty big increase for detached. It almost doubled there, so 21 sales of detached homes in Canada and Stittsville. Slight increase for towns and steady at 6 for the condos this week. In Barrhaven and Riverside South, a little bit of a mixed bag for the active inventory, an increase for the detached, but a drop for townhomes and condos for active inventory this week. Sales were up slightly, just slightly, across property types for the different types of properties. And I do want to say thank you to one of the viewers who pointed out that my active listings block of text was disappeared off my last presentation. I was having some technical issues with the videos, and in fixing the video thing, I inadvertently had deleted that box, but it's back, and the pluses and minuses are accurate this time. And finally, in Orleans, we have an increase for the detached and towns active inventory, slight drop for condos, but that's largely due to the fact that they had a huge week for sales. And actually, when you get to the condo slide, you'll see that also the conditionally sold condos are very high right now. So it just means that they're selling. It wasn't that, it's just the active inventory wasn't keeping up with the number of sales that are happening. Detached sales was actually slightly lower this week than last, and townhomes up slightly. This is the full data for the residential detached segment of the market. The active days on the market still is sitting up at around the 66 down in Orleans, up to higher in the 80s in the central urban area, and then the days on market, or cumulative days on market for the sold, are more in the 40 to 60 days range. This is the full data for the townhomes, and you can notice here that the days on the market, the cumulative days on the market for both active and sold, are lower than what they are for the detached, and that is normal. We typically have a bit quicker of a market for the townhomes, ranging between 30, looks up to 53 for Barrhaven Riverside South. That may be to the fact that they had such high inventory of townhomes about a month ago, and I even had done a little segment on that, how Barrhaven just has more townhomes, but there was abnormally high number of townhomes that were on the market. So perhaps all of those properties that were on the market throughout the summer, they're just finally getting to the point of selling. So that's why the average is higher now. And finally, the full data for the condominiums. and you can see that the sales are up close to where we are for the conditional sales. But expect that the number of condos selling could drop a little bit next week, but it's still pretty strong. There's not a whole lot more or a whole lot less conditionally sold right now than there were sales this week. And that's it. That's all I have. A quick update since we are sort of in the middle of the month. That's sort of a time when there's not a lot, but we can start seeing what's happening. Definitely we're in a bit of a fall market. It's just yet to be seen how much more inventory is going to come on and whether or not the increased sales will be sustained. So I guess we'll follow along. And if you have any feedback on what you'd like to see or how you'd like me to switch things up or present things differently, please let me know, and I'll see if I can accommodate what people actually want to see. I hope you have a great week.